Hi there, it's Miles from Lightharvest Solar. I just want to do a quick video on this charge controller that I just got in. When something new looks nice, I tend to get it and bring it in and see how it works. You never really know until you get something in. This is obviously quite a nice looking unit. Aluminum casing. It's pretty robust. When I first pulled it out, I was pretty happy. Once I got into it, though, the first thing I noticed that I didn't like was this back bracket. You have to come at, so basically there's a U bracket. You put the thing in and you screw it in, right? So it's hard to get a screwdriver in here and way over here. And so I ended up stripping two of them. It was really hard to make it straight, and this one is definitely crooked. So once I got it up and running, it's running 2 lithium batteries and a 2,000 watt inverter. Once I got it up and running, I, wouldn't say I was super thrilled. It was doing all kinds of things, like it would turn off. I don't know if it was searching for the maximum power point or what it was doing, but it was definitely cycling off and on. Two of them did it. I was able to manipulate the settings a bit, and it got it to work. Although it's certainly not programmed to my satisfaction in terms of the user-defined function. So the next thing I can say that I really don't like is the fact that it turns off every 30 seconds or something like that. I may be able to change that into settings. I don't know. The programming was too difficult for me anyway to deal with, so I certainly don't have the time to tackle that. And nobody likes big blue lights blinking all the time for no reason. They change, it doesn't make any sense. So let's get back to it. This is I like the coloring of the screen, but that's about all I like. Going up and down, it's really it'll go, you can see it and then you can't see it and then you can see it. So it's really hard to see that screen all the time. The next thing is I hate when people use up screen space. So now I got to push it again because I spent more than however many seconds. Okay. Pet peeve of mine is when people use up screen space for totally irrelevant stuff. Let me show you how much is irrelevant. That's irrelevant. Don't even know what it is. Barely seen it change. It's probably indicating that's the battery. It's irrelevant. I mean, it's a solar panel. Okay, right. This, okay, MPPT, totally irrelevant. I don't know even what that is, if that's like indicating it's charging or what. All of this stuff, totally irrelevant. A clock, come on, that flashes off and on. I don't need any of that. There's only one number I even really care about, and that's this one. That's 13.1 volts. That's the battery voltage. That's your gas gauge on your battery. And that's all I really have to know. But it's tiny and it's in the corner, and it's not on all the time, so I can't see it all the time. Right? Like imagine your gas gauge turning off unless you touch it if you touch it, then it comes back on your car. Totally obnoxious, right? You have to see that. So I like charge controllers that have that big and only that. Now there's other things that if we're gauge geeks, that we like to know, like this, which is the battery amperage going into the battery, 2.5 amps going into the battery. Okay, let's go get some more gauge geeky stuff. 32 watts. Okay, that's the most important stuff. Then it's got a bunch of nonsense, whatever programming. That's the battery voltage, okay? This is stuff that you definitely don't need to know. It's helpful for diagnostics, but that's the panel voltage. And if you're a gauge geek, of course, whatever. That's the amperage going in. You'll notice it's low. It's a 1 amp. The wattage should be the same as down there, essentially. A bunch of nonsense. And okay, so we're back to the panel voltage. Now, all of the panels that I use are commercial panels that go on houses and solar farms. They do not put 100 watt panels up when they could put 33 300 watt panels up, or 20 360 watt panels, or whatever it may be. All of the best technology, all of the best warranties, all of the UL rating, all of the best prices, everything is in the big panels. And they typically start at about 270 watts right now. They're all the way up to 360. This was a 340 on there, and that's one panel. So there's a couple advantages to that. The biggest, there's a whole bunch of advantages to it, but one of the advantages is the fact that it sends the power at a higher voltage to the MPPT charge controller, which means that you lose less of your power through the wires. When you put 100-watt panels in parallel, the amps go up. The wire hates amps, and what happens is that you lose a bunch of power. Okay, the lower the voltage, the more power you lose. So the low voltage panels are only really practical up unless you start having a lot of difficult design challenges up until about 300 watts. Okay, still this is superior because of course it runs a higher voltage, less line loss to it. Then it goes into the MPPT and it transforms it down to a lower voltage. Okay, and while you're doing that, you transform the voltage, the amperage higher. So we can see, I'll toggle through that, and you can see that the amperage is low here, but it's 3 times there. So let's just change it back to the voltage of the panel is about 3 times what it is here, right? 36. So that's what happens is it takes a high voltage, a low amperage, and it changes it to a low voltage at high amperage. And it's much more versatile because you can use the best panels and you can get them cheaper, and they're way easier to put one 300-watt panel on a vehicle or something like any installation at all than 3 100-watt panels. And they're higher performing and they're less expensive. They're UL rated. That's huge. A lot of these panels aren't even legal to go on structures. So that is with the setup that we go with. And here's the charge controller that we're testing. Functionally, it works pretty well. I haven't it's still up. If stuff doesn't work, I just take it down and replace it. Like I said, I think it looks really nice. It's a pretty good price point. I like the touch screen, but there's definitely enough to it that it is that I don't like that it's not going to dethrone the current product line. Lightharvest Solar, we can help you design off-grid solar, and we know what we think is best, and that's what we carry. Thanks.